Hello everyone and welcome back to a football forecast. And today's video I'm going to be reviewing every Premier League game for this week and starting off with Spurs Manchester United. So this game between Spurs and Manchester United ended in a 2-2 draw, and let's be honest, the first sort of 80 minutes of this game wasn't to the highest quality, and this is sort of what I was expecting, an early kick-off game. We often get these sort of games. Two sides, I thought they might struggle to sort of have enough creative threats, and that's what it sort of looked like it was going to. Appear to be a 1-0 win for United. A good header from Brian and Buemu to put them 1-0 up, and a good ball from Amad Diallo. I thought it was a bit weird that Benjamin Sesko didn't start today's game and they didn't go with a different option up front, because I just think Amad is such a good attacking threat as a wing back. Spurs, I think, struggled without Kudus, and that was clear to see, and it took until the 80th minute until it was actually a very good goal from Matisse Tell to give them the equaliser, and I think just give the fans, give everyone a bit of belief that they could come back in this game. And it did help that closely after this, Benjamin Sesko had to go off the pitch because he was injured and they had no substitutions left for Manchester United, so they were playing with 10 men for the final moments, and this allowed Richarlison to get the equaliser for Spurs, and it was actually a very good header from Richarlison, good awareness. Agate was playing him onside, and it was a brilliant actually awareness to know that he was on and he could flick it on. And I think most people thought, okay, that's it, Spurs won. United don't have their attacking outlet as Sesko, but from a corner, Matthias de Ligt with the equaliser to make this game a Desmond. I do wonder maybe Vicario could have done a bit more with that. It was difficult though. It's so hard to stop headers like this. Overall, I think that's a decent point for both sides. I think Spurs will be annoyed the fact they've thrown this away, considering United only had 10 men. I think United might look at this as a point gained. I know they were up for most of the game, but at the end of the day they went down to 10 men and they scored in the last minute too. I think overall they'll be pretty positive about that result. Let me know your thoughts on this game, and if you enjoyed this, it'd be great if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. So then we've got Everton Fulham, and it was a dominant win for Everton over Fulham. And if you watch this game, Everton really did apply the pressure in that first half. They started fast like you want to see at Hill Dickinson, get the crowd on side. That's sort of what I thought they were trying to, and they achieved that well despite not being able to find that goal straight away. And they did find some offside goals, so that is for sure in this game, with 3 goals being given offside. The first one came in around reasonably early in the game through Barry, and it was Njai that was offside for that goal, and it's unfortunate for Barry. Barry just feels like he needs a goal for some confidence, but it was definitely offside. The second goal was offside in the build-up. It was a great volley by Tarkowski. We've seen this before, volley by James Tarkowski, and Michael Keane I think should have done better than the header, but this sort of would have worked out. But once again, it was offside again. And then finally, just before the break, Idrissa Gana Gueye gave Everton the lead, and it was once again a very scrappy goal, sort of what we're getting with Everton. It's what you expect from a David Moyes side at Everton, and eventually they bundled it over the line through Idrissa Gana Gueye. James Tarkowski, once again, they probably should have scored off that, hitting the bar. And then Everton in the second half, I didn't think they were as good in the second half. I thought Fulham decided to actually try attack a bit more. They started to show a bit more free on the counter. Everton, though, once again had another disallowed goal for offside, this time through Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. This is a contentious one. Was Barry interfering with play? He definitely stretches his leg out, but he doesn't touch the ball. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. I'm not so sure. It's a difficult one to judge, because he does intervene, but then he just doesn't make any contact with the ball. And then it's a header from Michael Keane to give Everton the 2-0 win. What you expect from Michael Keane, very good in the air. And overall, Everton deserved this win, and I think this was an expected win, and they need this win to get back on track. For Fulham, I think this is a disappointing display more than anything. This could have been a lot more than just 2 goals. Then we had a high-scoring game at the London Stadium between West Ham and Burnley. I really didn't think this was going to be high-scoring. It's that simple. And a lot of the goals were very scrappy, but it was Burnley who I actually thought started the better. They got the first goal through Fleming. Fleming's been a real threat this season, actually, for Burnley. He continues to bag some goals, and he's actually been a bit of a threat. And I'm actually been impressed with the amount of goals Burnley have scored. I thought they were going to score less than this. I know they haven't scored a huge amount of goals, but I really thought Burnley were going to really struggle this season. And despite losing in a game where I feel like they needed something from. Once again, we're like, oh, well, there are signs that maybe they could still stay up. Wilson equalised for West Ham just before half-time. A very Callum Wilson goal, an instinctive finish after some decent play from Somerville. This is the sort of goals you get with Wilson. And the most Thomas Soucek goal right again. And it was once again a very instinctive goal in at the right place, and a pretty simple finish for Soucek to get the second goal just in off his body. Once again, I'm questioning Dubravka here. Dubravka's been absolutely brilliant for Burnley so far this season, but I think he could have done better with this, and I think he could have handled it in a different way. I think he could have parried it further away, and I'm definitely questioning him on the Walker-Peters goal. It's poor keeping from Dubravka. If you're going to try catch, first of all, you have to hold it, or you just have to parry it further away. Poor keeping from Dubravka, and it allowed a tap-in for Walker-Peters after an initial shot from West Ham. And Bowen could have easily scored this one. They were all lining up to get this goal. And then Josh Cullen did give Burnley, I guess, maybe a little bit of hope just before added time was about to end. And once again, it's actually really poor keeping from Alphonse Areola. He has to be holding on to that. Absolutely poor keeping. And today it was a bit of a story of the keepers. Neither keeper had a great showing, and that is why we got 5 goals in the game, which I don't think anybody really expected. For West Ham, that's an absolutely massive win over Nuno. It wasn't the best performance. I think they could definitely be better, but getting 2 home wins in a row was absolutely crucial. They had to start picking up the home form. The home form up to this point had been absolutely shocking, and that was the main issue under Graham Potter. And I think that Nuno's at least getting some of the home fans behind him, because they need that if they're going to stay in this division. So Arsenal have dropped points away at Sunderland. This was always going to be a difficult game. Sunderland are unbeaten at home so far this season. They're looking like a team with real belief about them, and that's exactly what we saw today. And they got the opening goal through Dan Ballard, who continues to be one of their best defenders and one of their best players going forward. And that's what Sunderland are. They're very good defensively. Alderente, Mukiele, Ballard, and Trey Hume. They've got so many good defensive options for Sunderland, and that's why they continue to manage to grind out these sort of results. And today was a bit more of a different game. It was a Desmond. Not what I don't think a lot of people expected, considering Arsenal don't score a lot of open play goals. And they actually did manage to get 2 goals today. One through Bukayo Saka, and this was definitely a mistake from Enzo Laffi. There's no doubt about that. He had to be better there. He was too slow on the ball, and it allowed for Saka to score to equalise for Arsenal. And then Trossard scored an absolute brilliant goal. I think that's the only way to describe that goal from Trossard. And then Sunderland just kept pushing and pushing for the equaliser. Got lots of crosses into the box, and finally Arsenal's defence broke once again, something that we haven't seen this season, for them to concede 2 goals, and it came from Brobby. An excellent finish from Brobby. He did so well to get into that position, but it once again comes down from Ballard's ability to win the ball in the air and knock it down to Brobby. Such a good goal, and that is a massive point once again for Sunderland. And I'm more thinking now, could Sunderland get into Europe? Not about the relegation battle. I don't think there should be a Sunderland fan that's worried about going down with how Sunderland are playing. It was an absolutely brilliant performance once again. For Arsenal, they'll be so disappointed in the fact that they didn't win this game, and they'll be wondering, what could we done differently? Could we maybe gone for the 3rd goal a bit more? Maybe brought some substitutions on. Arteta only used 1 sub. But at the end of the day, this isn't an awful point for Arsenal. I don't think that's how this should be presented. This is just a decent point. It's not a point gained. It's not a point lost. That's how I look at this result. And look, Arsenal had chances right after that goal actually to win the game, but it was a good save by Roos, and then another brilliant block from Ballard. Definitely the man of match of today's performance. Dan Ballard was superb. So then we've got Chelsea Wolves. That was reasonably comfortable for Chelsea with a 3-0 win, and I think it was all about getting that first goal. And once they got the first goal, I think it was always going to be an easy win, because Wolves just can't score goals right now. It's that simple. They didn't have nearly enough shots. I think only about 3 shots in the game, and you're never going to win football games when you have that little of shots. So it was all about that first goal, and it did come through Malo Gusto. A really good ball in by Alejandro Garnacho, and they struggled in the first half to break Wolves down. They had lots of chances. They just couldn't quite get that end product that they needed, which has been a criticism of Chelsea this season, but it did come through Gusto. And then the goals and the chances did arrive more fast. I think Estevan needs to start for Chelsea off that right-hand side. He's a constant threat. I know he's young, and maybe they're concerned about sort of using him too often, but when he plays, they are a completely different side. I think they're so much more energetic. They're so much more dangerous. We've seen it in so many games so far this season. and he played a lovely ball across to João Pedro, and it was a simple finish for Pedro, who I really do like. I think more in that 10 with sort of a striker up front that he can play off, and I think that worked well today. And then finally, to round off the goals, it was a brilliant ball across the face of the goal from Garnacho. He had a really good game today, absolutely brilliant for Chelsea, and he would be my player of the match. And he needs to have these sort of performances to prove some of the doubters wrong about him, and it was a decent finish from there, so just sort of a tap in. For Wolves are just down, I think. It's that simple. I just can't see a world, even with a new manager coming in, whoever it is. I don't think Wolves have enough creativity. I think they're too weak defensively. I think the fans have lost belief, and they're just so far behind the next sides. And unlike the usual seasons we've seen recently in the Premier League, you're going to need a decent points total to stay up this year, because Burnley, Leeds and Sunderland are going to be more of a threat than other sides. Sunderland especially. Sunderland are basically already safe, which means you're going to have to be better when one of those established Premier League sides. And right now, I just can't see who that's going to be. So then we've got Brentford, Newcastle, and Brentford very much deserved their 3-1 win over Newcastle United. Their torrid away form continues today, and once again it was a very similar performance from Brentford, but it was Newcastle who took the lead through Harvey Barnes. A brilliant turn and finish from Barnes. Definitely one of Newcastle's better players today. It was weird to actually see him, I think, get taken off. But after this, Brentford started to apply a lot of pressure on Newcastle. The set pieces were a real threat, especially those long throws from Coyote. And eventually in the second half, that is where the goal came from Kevin Schade. But it is so poor from Sven Botman. He basically he hits the back of his head, trying to clear the ball, but it just flicks it on, and it's an easy finish for Schade. Really poor from Botman. And Dan Burn, after this, had an absolute nightmare for the next sort of 20 minutes. He was already on a booking. Arguably should have been sent off earlier. It was given as a dive from Otara. I think I probably agree with this. I think there was some contact, but he's gone down so softly. I think there's no doubt about this. And then eventually Otara got on it again this time. And this time Dan Burn did take it down. It was given as a penalty. And Dan Burn was sent off. I think Howell needed to take off Burn. I think the reason he was keeping him on was for his long throws. But he was clearly being exposed a lot in behind. And eventually it did cost him with a red card. And it was well converted by Eagle Thiago. Aaron Ramsdale came on in goal. Apparently Pope had a bit of an injury. I wonder if it was also maybe they think Ramsdale may have had a better chance of saving the penalty than Nick Pope. And after this, Newcastle were forced to go after it. They brought in Hull. Hull played a good ball actually across the face, but it was well defended by Rico Henry. And then finally, in the final moments, when Newcastle were open, they were looking to win the game. They've managed to finish it off, Brentford, with some great passing, great play. But after a very good tackle from Chow, it's really poor awareness from Botman, not realising where the ball is. After the tackle, it sort of ended up behind him, and this meant it was a simple finish for Eagle Thiago to get the 3 points of Brentford once again, showing how strong of a side they really are this season, especially at home, and how weak of a side Newcastle currently are away from home. This is a real problem for Newcastle. So then we've got Nottingham Forest, Leeds United. Forest winning 3-1. And it wasn't as convincing as maybe it looks, because Forest did actually go 1-0 down to Leeds United. Some good play and then an excellent finish from Lucas Nemecha. This was completely against the run of play and on the break. And it was an instant response from Forest. A good ball in from Dan and Doy. And then the keeper sort of got attached to it but couldn't get it all the way. And Sangare was there to follow up to give Forest the equaliser. They couldn't quite apply all the pressure they needed to in that first half to get their second goal, but I thought Omari Hutchinson, when he came on, completely changed the game. It was good to see Hutchinson get to football, because so far this season I don't think he's got nearly enough minutes, and it was brilliant play from Omari Hutchinson to put the ball using his left foot into Morgan Gibbs-White, and Morgan Gibbs-White just added the little flick on to put the ball past Lucas Perry in Leeds United's goal. And up from there, it was going to be an upwards battle from Leeds. They had a couple of chances through Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who came on. He didn't start because of a groin injury. And look, Calvert-Lewin's always a threat because he's an absolute magnet. He's big and strong in there, but he couldn't quite put those chances away. And then once again, Hutchinson showed his quality by winning a penalty given away by Jack Harrison. That is a penalty for Nottingham Forest, and it was well converted by Elliot Anderson to give Forest three valuable points. And I think that sort of just reassures people that Forest aren't going to get relegated from the Premier League, and Leeds probably are. So then we have Crystal Palace Brighton. It finished in a 0-0 draw. Probably the result I think that was most unexpected. I think these are two sides that score, or they do score a lot of goals. Brighton aren't great defensively, especially away from home against the better side, which I consider Palace right now. So I really thought there were going to be a lot more goals in this game. I also thought Palace would win this game, so I think that's a decent point for Brighton away from home. Some big saves were required from Verbruggen as well as Dean Henderson. Ismail Sarr and Mateta combined very well, but neither of them could really put the ball into the back of the net. Obviously, Jorginho Ruta thought he had won a penalty, but it's an obvious dive from Ruta. A really disgraceful dive, actually, to be honest. There's absolutely no contact with him at all. So then we've got Aston Villa. We're having a dominant win over Bournemouth. I think they were very good today, Aston Villa, and you have to be very good to win against a quality side like Bournemouth 4-0. And look, the first 20 minutes was pretty much in the balance, but where it changed was that Bournemouth had a free kick and it was blazed over. And in a similar position, a minute later, Villa had a free kick and it was beautifully put in from Emi Buendia. Great technique, great goal, and he deserved that goal based off that quality. And I think this gave Villa the platform to keep on going because a second goal came in pretty soon after, but there was a lot of chances before this through Amadou Onana. It is brilliant play by Morgan Rogers to nutmeg Alex Jimenez, and I'm pretty sure this is why he went off at half-time. Not this specifically, but he was having a really difficult game. Actually, after coming on after the 10th minute, really poor showing from Jimenez. Let me know if it was something different. As far as I can see, it was because of a poor first half. After this, Bournemouth started to have a couple more chances though, and it was a deflected shot from Alex Scott, but it was an exceptionally good save from Emi Martinez, and he made another brilliant penalty save up against Antoine Semenyo after a Tielemans handball. Definitely should have been given as a handball. I've got no complaints with that. And it was a great header from Ross Barkley though after this to give Villa the third goal and confirm the result in the 77th minute. Very good flick on at the near post, and then Daniel Marlin rounded off for Villa after it was his deflection of the Yuri Tielemans shot. A very much deserved result, I think this was for Aston Villa. They very much deserved this win, I think, today, and it was good to see for Villa because I think now Villa are showing signs they can push for Champions League football. For Bournemouth, I mean, every now and then with a side like Bournemouth, you're going to get these sort of results. I think it's fair to say. City have sent Liverpool out of the title race in emphatic style, winning 3-0 over Liverpool. And before we get into Liverpool, Manchester City were absolutely brilliant today. Their passing was crisp, their pressing was brilliant, and they really did deserve 3 points. Jeremy Doku was definitely Manchester City's standout player, but overall, all their players had a pretty good game. Erling Haaland, I thought, was brilliant today again. I thought Phil Foden in the first 30 minutes was a real threat, and Liverpool were really poor today. We were really poor. We needed a good performance after doing so well against Real Madrid and Villa. I felt like we had a chance at this game, and we were just nowhere near as good as we were in the last two games. It was that simple. We were completely off the pace. On the goals, Erling Haaland's first goal in the 29th minute, it was absolutely coming, but it was terrible defending from Kanate. I don't know what he needs to be handling that. Erling Haaland a lot better than this, and someone needs to stop the cross, really. And then Nico Gonzalez's goal, no one gets out to Nico Gonzalez. Just block the shot and it deflects in, and then finally Jeremy Doku rounded off for Manchester City, making it 3-0 win for City. And look, that's just an absolutely brilliant goal. There's nothing we could really do much about it. We could have stopped them earlier, tried pull them down, but it's an unbelievable finish. Mamardashvili not at fault for any of the goals, and in fact he saved the penalty today. Probably one of Liverpool's best players on the pitch. Mamardashvili was very good. Was that a penalty? For me, there's definitely some contact, but I think he's just dived to the floor because it's very much after it feels like that he goes down. So for me, that shouldn't have been given as a penalty. But this doesn't excuse a performance like that. Liverpool were nowhere near good enough today. And I thought we were better in the second half, but that was only because I think City started to drop off and started to not play as well. There was a couple of big chances for Liverpool even before it went to 3-0 with Cody Gakpo. He should have scored after just coming on. It was good play by Bradley, but that was really the only real chance that Liverpool had to get themselves back into this match, apart from obviously the offside goal. So where did Liverpool go from here? Well, they've got got to rebuild after the international break. We do have easier run of fixtures, but we've actually performed worse in these sort of games. And I do think that is the title race gone for Liverpool. It's now focused on just ensuring we get Champions League football and trying to go as far as we can in the Cups. For City, I think City are well and truly in the title race after watching that sort of performance. They can definitely match Arsenal or be better if they play like that. And they're not as over-reliant on Haaland as people, I think, perceive right now. Let me know your thoughts on these games this week. There have been so many goals. And if you enjoy this, it would be great if you could subscribe to your channel.